Okay, now we are set to go. So again, my name is Jon Mott. I am the Chief Learning Officer at Learning Objects, division of Cengage Learning. And today we're going to talk about designing transformational learning experiences, and wanted to just give you some quick ways to stay in touch with us. On Twitter, I am at Jon Mott. You can also tweet us at Learning Objects. Wanted to give you just a little bit of background and overview about Learning Objects. We've been around for about 12 years. We were acquired by Cengage in October. And
the leader has muted your line. To unmute your line, press #6.
We have a unique place in the market, a combination of learning science. Can you still hear me okay? I think somebody might have muted me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yep, just had a voice in my head that said somebody muted me, so I'm okay. All right. Gotta love technology, right? If this worked perfectly, we'd worry that something was wrong in the world. So we have a combination of learning science capabilities, a team of folks who have advanced degrees in instructional science and data analytics and instructional design. We bring that together with great technology from Learning Objects. Our platform is called Difference Engine, and now together with Cengage, we can bring to bear all of the Cengage content as well as content from other sources through integrations with VitalSource or with other third parties, and we can also blend together OER. So we really take a content agnostic approach. We're really focused on what are the right tools, what are the right activities, what's the right content in order to be able to create the right learning experiences that we need. That wasn't intentional, but I guess you got to see a quick picture of my family. We also bring together with that some great learning design and curriculum development services. We have as a team the ability to partner with institutions to design entire programs or courses or assessments or activities that can be delivered leveraging a variety of content and the tools that are available on Difference Engine. So let's talk about this notion of a next generation digital learning environment. This is a Gates Foundation and an EDUCAUSE term that kind of came to light over the last year. And so kind of the question has been, well, why do we need one? In the white paper that EDUCAUSE issued, they talked about the need for more interoperability and integration between tools. I'm sure at your institutions you have many tools that you wished shared data better with each other. You wished it was a more seamless experience. We also need more personalization. We need systems and tools and curriculum that adjust and respond to differences in students' starting points, their pace, their path, their abilities. And we also need better tools around analytics that will support advising and better assessment. And we also need tools around collaboration, and of course all of this needs to be accessible and built with universal design in mind, meaning that it should just work seamlessly on whatever device you're on. So that's kind of the EDUCAUSE perspective. And we think that's really important from a learning technology platform perspective. But today I also want to focus on the notion that that L word in NGDLE is more important than the technology. A lot of times we get enamored with technology and new capabilities and bright, shiny toys. But from our point of view at Learning Objects, we really focus on the learning aspect of what a next digital learning environment is. So today what I'm going to talk about is both sides of that coin. So what are our opportunities in improving learning, and what are our opportunities in improving the infrastructure? Because when we really do both together, that's when we believe that we can get transformational experiences. So let's think about some of the challenges that we might be up against in higher education, in the various contexts that we're in, whether you're a faculty member or an administrator, an instructional designer, a department chair, maybe you're on a curriculum committee. What are some of the challenges that we're up against? So especially in our GE courses, because of the high volume of students, we often design assessments for scalability. And that puts us in a position where we're not often measuring the things that we care most about. That's a challenge. That's a problem we need to figure out how to solve. And in many instances, our performance evaluations are referenced around a norm. So we grade against a curve. And often we do that because our assessments are designed for scalability, and we may not be precise enough about exactly what mastery or excellence or capability looks like. And so we create difficult assessments, and we just sort of say the people who do the best on the difficult assessments are A's, and then we distribute them out accordingly. That's a model that needs some rethinking as well. And then I think a lot of you may be in roles where you're in instructional design centers or faculty centers, you're in support roles, or you work with folks like that. And these are people that have gone to school to get master's degrees, PhDs. They've done a lot of work on instructional design, learning science, assessment, psychometrics, but unfortunately they often get relegated to roles as sort of support staff for SMEs. And we think that that's a critical opportunity to elevate and better engage those kinds of people in the curriculum design and improvement process. And there's another kind of side effect of this. I was at Brigham Young University for 10 years and was the director of the Center for Instructional Design there. We actually had a walk-in center for faculty media support, and we kind of joked that a lot of times we were seen as digital Kinkos for courseware or programs. People would come in and say, hey, I need this DVD, I need this website, I need, this animation, without a lot of strategic consideration for why we were building that. And we really tried to shift that conversation to, well, what is the DVD supposed to solve? What is the website supposed to solve? What's not happening in your course that you wish was happening? And then let's talk about the right intervention with the right technology to help your students achieve their learning goals. So these are some of the kind of learning challenges and opportunities that we're confronted with. Compound that with the infrastructure that we're by and large confronting today, which is almost universally some configuration of a student information system and a learning management system. Your SIS could be any number of vendors. LMSs could be an open source tool like Sakai or Moodle, or it's likely to be a commercially provided LMS like Blackboard or Canvas, but whatever it is, the integration between those two tends to be sharing section rosters from the SIS and grades coming back from the LMS. And there's, depending on how long the term or the semester is, a 5 to 15-week lag in that exchange of data. The challenge is that inside of the LMS, there are all of these course sections that are created. There's a lot of really interesting data going on there about interactions between students and content, students and teachers, students and students. There's learning activities going on. There are assessments given and graded. The problem is that the data inside of those is inconsistently formatted, it's often incomplete, and it's disaggregated data. We have a situation where we could really improve the connection between the data in these sections if we have the right infrastructure. But as it is, it's almost impossible, or at least very difficult, to compare learner performance across one section to the next, to see how students do in one semester to the next in a program to see how maybe different instructors help their students across different sections, to roll performance data about things like writing across the curriculum from one course to the next. So that interoperability and accountability infrastructure is very limited. And then, heaven forbid, on your campus, if you have a second LMS that may be even less integrated, this problem is compounded. So this is kind of the status quo that the EDUCAUSE white paper was really getting at, was we don't have the right infrastructure, so we lack interoperability and accountability. We're also adding to that, from our point of view, the notion that there's improvements that we can make around learning design and curriculum design and really integrating our professionals who are already on campus into this process. And it's when we put the two of those together, both good learning design and better infrastructure, that we can get transformational changes. Maybe I'll just pause there and see if there are any questions before I move forward any further. Court, maybe if you could text those to me if there are any. Okay, none yet. We'll just keep moving forward then. Again, if you have questions or comments along the way, please chat them out. If we don't get to them on the call, we'll make sure and respond in a follow-up email. But again, what we're really looking for is the synergy of good learning design and good infrastructure. So let's talk a little bit about what good learning design is all about. So where we start at Learning Objects is really with this notion of backward design, where we say, what capabilities, skills do we want our learners to have when they're done with a program? Pardon me, just one second. No, I'm doing my WebEx from a hotel, and the maid service just came in, so I needed to tell them I'm busy. I apologize for the interruption. We start with, what are the capabilities that our students should have when they're done with a program or a course, and what are the different ways that we're going to measure or assess that? In other words, what evidence are we willing to accept that our students, our learners, have the capabilities that we've assigned and articulated in the context of a course or a program? And then when a learner is lacking some of those capabilities based on those assessments, we want to know what activities we should send them to. So we've architected Difference Engine, the Learning Objects platform, to really start with backward design. So in our authoring tools, we start with authoring a program. We name the program. We say, what are the capabilities in that program? What are the various ways that those capabilities can be measured? And then what are the various ways that those can be taught or inculcated through various activities? So how do we think about better assessments? Well, when we think about better assessments, one of the things that we feel strongly about is moving toward criterion referenced assessments or authentic assessments, where we're really focused on what is the standard of mastery or achievement that we care about in a field. And I've had a lot of conversations with different faculty in different disciplines over the years about this in my various roles. I remember at Brigham Young talking to the department chair in philosophy, and he was saying, I don't know how to do criterion reference assessment in philosophy. And we had a really interesting, no pun intended, philosophical discussion about this. And we talked about, well, what is it that really matters most? Can you tell the difference between your very best philosophy graduates and your not so good philosophy graduates? And he said, yeah, sure I can. I said, well, let's start talking about what those differences are. And he said, well, the best ones are more widely read in philosophical texts and have a quicker, ready grasp on different concepts and ideas from different philosophical traditions. I'm like, okay, let's write that down. Okay, what else? He said, you know, another example is the best students are more sophisticated in their ability to critically analyze a text and compare it to others. Okay, great, let's write that down. And then we move from there to working on what are good assessments that we can apply to each of those capabilities at a high level in a program that we could really say are criterion referenced, that aren't really norm referenced. We're going to set a standard and say anybody who gets here can achieve mastery or an A or whatever that highest level of performance is that we want to talk about. And this is very closely tied to authentic assessment. You know, in a nursing program, in a medical program, this is pretty straightforward. If we want somebody to be able to work on a live human being, we do simulations, and then eventually, you know, when we're training a phlebotomist, we want them to actually poke holes in somebody's veins and make sure that they know how to do it the right way. There are different kinds of assessments we can do in different disciplines that really get at the things that matter most. And for us, kind of our point of view is the infrastructure, the tools, the systems, the processes should not get in the way, should not limit our desire to do authentic criterion referenced assessment. If we care about something, if we think it's the most important thing in a program, we ought to focus on figuring out how to do that kind of assessment. And what that means is, obviously we want to do computer-graded assessment where it makes sense, give students quick feedback, but also using flexible rubrics that can be applied to any performance or artifact. On the right, you can see an example of a difference engine rubric where on the left panel you see an artifact that's been submitted, a rubric that the instructor can fill out. In our context, we believe it's critical for instructors and curriculum coordinators to be able to create these rubrics collaboratively, to share them across courses, across the curriculum, so that students are evaluated in a consistent way, and that we can then use that data to drive personalized learning experiences, which I'll talk about in a minute. But another key point here is that, you know, you see a paper here, Reality and Political Science. We can use any artifact there that represents student performance you want. It could be an audio file, a video file. We could literally have this be you observing the student doing something live, like giving a presentation in front of the classroom, and the rubric is on your iPad or your computer, and you fill that out while you watch the live performance. Our goal is to say, let's make authentic assessment as easy and as transparent and as simple as it should be in order for you to measure the things that you care about most. So as we move from better assessment, what are some of the other options or improvements that we need? We really need to think about personalized learning flows, and there's a lot of buzzwords, a lot of talk out in the marketplace about personalized and adaptive learning, and we really try to simplify it down to its barest components and its most straightforward aspects and say, okay, when we're talking about personalization, we're talking about learners who have done something. That something might be they took the SAT before they matriculated at our institution. They might have taken courses at another institution. They might have some life experience that we think gives them some capabilities that we could assess. Or it could be as simple as they did a homework assignment last night, or they just took a midterm. In either case, they do that activity, and then we evaluate it. We assess it in some way, shape, or form using those authentic, direct assessments that we just talked about. And then based on that data, we can say, okay, what's the next best thing for this student? And the rule that we apply to that evaluation data can be very complex. It could be algorithmic, or it could just be a simple cut score. And we believe that we should use the right level of complexity and sophistication for the right context. And we could have a more in-depth conversation with some or all of you if you're interested in this later, but in the difference engine context, we do have algorithmic contexts where we can probabilistically estimate a learner's ability to answer sort of the next question on an assignment, knowing how difficult that question is, what topic it is, and what the learner's demonstrated capability is up to that point. We can do spaced repetition. We can allow for generating experiences that are just in their zone of proximal development. That's great and powerful in the right context, but sometimes we don't need things that complicated and sophisticated. And by the way, that kind of adaptivity requires a lot of content. We need a lot of items. We need a lot of remedial materials. Sometimes what I need, though, is something much simpler. Like maybe I have a history student who just submitted an essay, and their grasp of historical facts is fine, their analysis of historical events is solid, but maybe their grammar and mechanics are weak. And so I just have a rule or a personalization trigger that says, John needs to go to the writing center and get some help with his grammar and mechanics before he submits his next paper. So that rule would update my learning plan. And the idea of learning plans from our context, our perspective, is that these learning plans should be able to be presented to learners and updated at various levels in the curriculum. A lot of what we see in the marketplace today is updated learning plans at kind of the activity level, the module level, or the course level. We think there's tremendous potential to do this at the program level, which is something that we're working on a lot and can help institutions think through and implement. If you think about things like writing across the curriculum or critical thinking or numeracy, those are things that are really hard to update in a learning plan if you're just inside of an activity or a module or a course. You really have to be thinking above the course in order to do that. Some of the elements that you think about when you do this, I see a question came through, so let me do one other thing and then I'll address that question. As you think about these 4 steps in creating personalized learning workflows, some of the questions you might want to ask is, well, how many learner activities should I give my students? What kind of activities should they be? How often should I evaluate? What's the latency between when they complete the assessment and when they get their score back? The shorter the time lapse there, the better, obviously, but the more sophisticated the assignment, just the nature of that increases because of the need for instructor feedback and review. And then what rules do you care about? What algorithms do you think make sense? What are the things that you really think are forks in the road or points of demarcation for learners that are going to help them stay on a successful learning path or move to one? And then with the updated learning plan, how frequently do you want to update this, at what level, and in what ways? So some food for thought there. Let me read this question. So Laura from Harrison College in Indiana. So mentioned that ID starts following backward design to design courses. She's seen a lot better engagement through this, better student grades. It helps instructors feel better because they're part of the redesign. Yeah, that's a great comment. I wholeheartedly agree. That's something that I saw a lot of success with at BYU when I was there and with our clients now today at Learning Objects. A lot of times faculty members are resistant to having somebody come in and help them redesign their course. One thing that I've found to work particularly well is this backward design, you know, having that conversation like I did with that philosophy department chair. But if you can get a community of faculty members together, say the 4 or 5 people who teach Psych 101 or the curriculum committee for the psychology program, and really get them to feel invested in moving away from the notion of, well, this is my course, kind of evolving to, well, this is our course. We teach this together. We have a collective shared responsibility for it. And then moving even beyond that to, well, this course exists within our program, which we are accountable for. directly to our students, we're accountable. Sometimes there are internal accountabilities through regular program reviews. There's certainly disciplinary accountabilities for many programs. There's regular accreditation accountabilities. So as we think about ownership of that accountability in a team, some of these kinds of workflows, backward design and personalization, can really be empowering tools to help us get there. So just a thought, having worked for a long time in the trenches with instructional designers, as an instructional designer, as an instructional technologist, one bit of food for thought about how, if you're in those roles, how do you elevate your engagement and the way you participate in the process? Or if you're on the other side of that equation, if you're a faculty member or in the administration, how do you better engage with your instructional technologists, your learning designers? I think one of the most important ways to do this is to focus on KPIs, or key performance indicators. And I know it's a business term, but if you think about, let's take a GE course. One of the most important KPIs is, what is my drop, fail, and withdraw rate in a high enrolling general education course? If I have a high drop, fail, withdraw rate, that's an indicator that something is not working well in that course or with the students. And if you can get your learning design team hooking arms with the faculty and the administration to say, how can we solve that problem? Maybe it's that our students entering Psych 101 are unevenly prepared. Some maybe had an AP Psych course in high school, they just didn't take the AP test. Maybe some have never had a Psych course before. How do we sort those students out at the beginning and maybe have remedial on-ramps for some, maybe pair more advanced students with less advanced students? How do we start brainstorming around focusing together to solve those issues? Like, let's help more students be more successful. Let's help teachers focus on the students who need help today and design experiences that get them more specific, personalized help to the right students in the right context. So just some food for thought there. Now let's shift to the learning infrastructure. There's been, out of this EDUCAUSE NGDLE work, IMS Global, which is the leading learning technology standards group in higher education, has partnered with the Gates Foundation and Lumina and CBEN, which is the competency-based education network, to look at a new framework, a new model for how tools should interact with each other in higher ed to exchange the right data, to create a more seamless data infrastructure and accountability infrastructure for learning, from students to teachers all the way up to administrators and through the accreditation process. So this is a screenshot from an article that was published in EDUCAUSE Review. We'll share this out, the link to the article. But what I just want to point out here is that in this context, you'll see around the student information system or system of record, people are struggling with, where do I define my programs? How do I make sure that those programs are aligned with the specific activities that happen in the LMS? If I'm doing non-term kind of programs like competency-based programs, how do I make sure that I'm getting the right information in and out of my financial aid processing system? Or even if it's a traditional program, how do I show satisfactory progress with my data? And then how do I take that data out and drive a new kind of transcripting tool or official record that's more granular and more useful to learners and to employers than just a list of courses and credit hours and grades? So that's kind of the model there. Let me talk to you about how we are trying to solve this and work with institutions to solve this. So solution part one is really around interoperability, and I'm not sure the range of technical sophistication of the folks on this call, or I should say technical familiarity with the interoperability standards, but we as a company are very invested and participate very actively in things like moving forward with LTI, which is the Learning Tool Interoperability Specification, which allows students, if they're signed into one tool, to automatically move to another tool without having to sign on. And when they come back to the original tool, some performance data can come with it. Around analytics, there's an emerging standard called Caliper that allows you to get the right learning data from multiple tools and aggregate that to have a unified analytics view of your students across multiple learning environments. And more recently, and I'll finish with this at the end of our call today, some very exciting work around digital credentialing and how to maybe move the transcript forward into the next generation. Solution part two is really a learning-centered infrastructure, and this is really where I'm going to talk more about what Difference Engine brings to the table. We obviously care a lot about learning design. We've built things like backward design into our platform so that when you start building a program or a course, that workflow is almost enforced for the curriculum designers who are building curriculum in Difference Engine. But the key part to making all of this work, or the key framework, is really this learning-centered infrastructure. And the idea is that instead of having the SIS primarily communicate with a learning management system, we interpose this notion of a program system of record. And this is a tool that we provide. It has an authoring tool attached to it where you can actually author a program. You can say, I'm going to offer a program in bioinformatics. It's going to have these program level learning outcomes or competencies or capabilities, whatever terminology you choose to use at your institution. For each of those, you can specify supporting skills, abilities, knowledge components. And for each node on that sort of capability map, you can also then specify, how am I going to measure that? How am I going to tell, or what evidence am I going to accept that my students have those capabilities, have those skills? And then also, the third leg on that triangle is, in my program, what are the activities that I'm providing my learners that are designed to help them acquire those capabilities, those knowledge and skill components? Once I know that, I know what my program map looks like, I can start sending my students to personalized and adaptive learning experiences, courses, modules, etc. We can deliver those natively in Difference Engine, but we can also, through those interoperability standards that I mentioned previously, pass students through to a course in an LMS, pass them through to a third-party courseware tool like Cengage MindTap or MyOpenMath or other proprietary learning or assessment tools. Our goal, our objective is not to necessarily own and operate the entire learning infrastructure. We don't think that's possible for one company to do. We don't think it's healthy for one company to do. What we're striving to do is provide the glue and the infrastructure that creates a seamless behind-the-scenes data infrastructure, as well as a front-end learning experience that's engaging and allows students and instructors to move seamlessly through the workflow to really build this comprehensive program performance data store for individuals. So if you have your program system of record talking to your courseware, to your teaching and assessment tools, and the data integrations are happening in the right way, at any given point in time, I know exactly where my students stand relative to the capabilities in the programs that they're enrolled in. And those programs can be multifaceted. So this could be, how am I doing in my chemistry degree, but it could also be, how am I doing in my general education program, if you will. So we really start getting above the program and looking at institutional objectives. We get above the course, looking at program objectives. If things are mapped out in the right way and there's some consistency and uniformity in rubrics and the way things are being measured, I can actually start looking at, do my freshmen get better at writing and critical thinking moving from sophomore to junior to their senior year? Or within my majors, can I tell that this course is really preparing students for the next one? When they're done, can I look myself in the mirror? Can I look my students in the eye and say, yes, I have instilled in you capabilities X, Y, and Z that are going to enable you to go out into the workforce and succeed. And oh, by the way, here are the artifacts, the pieces of evidence that I'm going to point to for each of those capabilities that I'm asserting I have instilled in you. And in a live day-to-day fashion, that gets represented in a capability dashboard. So imagine a programmatic dashboard that for the learner says, here are the 5 or 6 capabilities in my program. Here's how I'm moving toward achieving those. Here's where I stand relative to those at any given point in time. If I'm an administrator and I log into that, depending on my purview, if I'm a department chair, I can see that capability dashboard for all of the learners in my department. If I'm a dean, I could see that for my college. The president could see that for the institution. So the idea is to have these snapshots of how are my students doing today relative to the learning goals that are stipulated or articulated for the programs that they're in. And that can drive a next generation capability transcript. We're doing a lot of work with UMUC, University of Maryland University College, as well as the University of Wisconsin Extension on this notion of the extended transcript. Joellen Shendy, who's the registrar at UMUC, likes to say that the transcript should not be a post-mortem autopsy document that we only look at when the student is sort of done or dead to the university. It should be a live, breathing, dynamically updated dashboard, if you will, of the learner's achievement of new capabilities, their demonstration of those capabilities, evidence attached to those, and if I take a snapshot of that at any point in time, that becomes my transcript. So I'm seeing a question come through. So to create what's on the screen right now, who all at an institution do you need to include to do something like this? So that's a fantastic question. You know, every institution is structured slightly differently, but if you imagine who are the stakeholders that are responsible for institutional assessment, who would be involved in maybe accreditation, folks like that would probably want to be involved. If you have program chairs or curriculum committees, folks like that would want to be involved. So any curriculum leaders who are focused on designing curriculum, aligning institutional and program outcomes with assessments, and of course, as I mentioned before, the excellent professional staff in your instructional design and learning centers. So that's kind of the learning design side of it. From the infrastructure side, it's whoever is in the technology organization that owns today the LMS and integrations with the SIS and other tools that you use in the learning process. Now, I know as I describe that, that sounds like a really big, complicated process, and it can be, but one of the things that we do is we also provide learning technology and curriculum design consultation services. And lest you think that's like a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal, we try to focus that on a 4 to 6 week program where we can come in, work with some set of those key stakeholders that I just mentioned, and build a high-resolution clickable prototype of what this might all look like at your institution with your tools talking to each other, with the right workflows for your learners, with the teachers and the various administrators interacting with that in the right way. that can really demystify it, de-risk moving forward, and help build some shared understanding and a vision for how to move forward with this. Rudy is asking, will this type of program integration design be user-friendly with the frontline user and the instructor? And so absolutely. Our focus and vision is that for the front end, this should be a beautiful, engaging experience, and I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like here in just a second. For our learners on the front lines, when I log in, I just want to know, what program am I in? Where am I? What am I supposed to do next? And for teachers, I want to see, where do I stand in my learning journey with my students? Who needs help today? How are they doing? Right? Behind the scenes, there's a lot of sophistication, but we have to make these really elegant, straightforward interfaces on the front end in order to drive that kind of experience. So that's what Learning Objects brings to the table. Let me show you a couple of views of what this can actually look like. So here's, for example, a prototype of this transcript, but let me show you the working version here. This is a working version that we've built and deployed as part of our work with IMS and with UMUC. You can see this is a transcript for Olivia Hafez. This is one example of what I think is a quite user-friendly dashboard for a learner, where Olivia says, okay, I'm in this Master of Science program in nursing. That program has these 5 program-level learning outcomes, or competencies, if you will. And if Olivia wants to know, okay, this says I'm 80% of the way toward achieving my capability to integrate information technology to align with nursing practice, what does that mean? I can open up the detail and I can see, oh, that also means I have some capabilities around data management and healthcare technology. Well, what are the skills and knowledge components associated with that? Olivia can drill down into that and see these 5 specific things. I can see the ones that I have demonstrated, maybe at a level of performance, and this is institutionally configurable. Some institutions want to make this binary. Other institutions want to apply different levels of achievement to these. I can see the date I achieved it, the level, and oh, by the way, I can also attach evidence. So in Olivia's case, she's moving through this program, and the program designer, the faculty members who created this program together with the learning designers, said there is one specific assignment that we are going to say is a comprehensive piece of evidence that will demonstrate Olivia's data management and healthcare technology capabilities. So on her transcript, we're going to automatically attach that artifact. So here is a PDF of a paper that Olivia wrote that demonstrates her capabilities with regard to that program level outcome. And it's unlike many portfolios where it's kind of a bag of artifacts that's hard to contextualize. In this context, the artifact is attached exactly to the capability that the institution is asserting that this individual has as they go out into the marketplace. For those of you that are a little bit more on the technical side, one of the emerging standards that we're working on with IMS and with institutional partners is what is the actual data file that represents a learner's current capability profile, and this is a JSON LD package that gets moved back and forth between systems, so that the information you see here is being rendered from that file, and it can therefore be machine read between systems and platforms. Sorry, here in a background conversation if somebody might want to go on mute. Okay, another question. Difference engine isn't tied directly to Cengage, correct? Meaning that this will work for
assignment to residential faculty final assignment.
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Oh. Entonces, estos son los que usted sabe los documentos que tiene que enviar, sí, ¿verdad? Ok, pues entonces ya los tienes ready, ¿verdad? Sí. Entonces usted le da aquí.
I'm sorry, but we hear somebody talking in the background. If you could put yourself on mute, that would be great.
Just one moment, please.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, I'm listening to you guys, and I'm talking to someone. I'm sorry.
So back to Tim's question about does Difference Engine have to use only Cengage content? No. So we obviously have a very special relationship with Cengage, being part of the broader Cengage family. We can deeply integrate Cengage content into courseware, but we can also use any content you want, other publisher content, OER, proprietary content you develop at your institution. So again, we're really trying to be an enabler that puts lots of pieces of the puzzle together for you so you can create seamless experiences using the tools and the technologies and the content that you deem appropriate to help your students learn. I hope that answers that question. Any other questions or comments? I know we're kind of getting close to the end of our time. Anything else on your mind? I want to do one other thing real quick while maybe some of those are coming through. Let's see. Sorry about that, just looking for one thing really quick here. I wanted to give you a quick idea. Of sort of the student experience. So let me come back up here. Oops. So here's an experience you can think about. So this is back to the question about how user-friendly is this. Think of yourself as a Master of Science and Nursing student, and you come in and you go, oh, here's my learning path. I have a program overview. I can see the 8 program level learning outcomes in my program. I can click into those. I can get a specific learning path. In this case, there are very specific courses that are tied to these, and I can drill down into those and then see what my progression in my program would look like. And as my capabilities fill up, these circles will fill up and show me my exact progress toward my degree. If any of you are interested, we could do a much more in-depth demo and review of exactly this workflow and how this looks, how this functions, and what the different capabilities we have around assessment and interactions between teachers and students in that process, and student-to-student interaction, et cetera. But the idea here is to really give me a quick dashboard that's friendly on an iPad, friendly on a phone. Wherever I am, I can see what work I have to do and make quick progress toward success. Yeah, so there's a question about, is this a next generation badge system? You know, that's one very interesting way to think about it. Badges certainly have their place, and we can generate badges from a transcript. So if I want to share one component of my transcript as a badge, that's certainly one sort of last mile piece of it. But the entire end-to-end process is really about good backward design, starting with great program design, from the outset, knowing exactly how we're going to measure student success each step along the way, how we're going to personalize that experience to optimize learner success, engagement, and retention as they move from GE into their major and so forth. And all along the way, making sure that we're capturing evidence and credentialing the right capabilities that we care about that we may want to share out in a granular way at the end, but that's an entirely configurable sort of at the institution's discretion option of how that gets shared out. The main event here is really about an end-to-end backward design, authentic evidence, and credentialing system, if that makes sense. So badging certainly an important part of it, but one of the pieces of a much bigger picture. Does that make sense? So I know we just have about 5 minutes left. If we have any more questions, I'm happy to address those. Or if not, I'm also happy to say thank you for your time and remind you that we'll be sending out the recording as well as some other information that you might find useful. Any other questions? Okay, well, hearing none, thank you very much for your time today. I hope this was helpful and gave you some sense of learning objects and what we bring to the table and how we really work synergistically with Cengage to bring you new and interesting opportunities to your curriculum redesign process, but also working with you agnostically in terms of your content, your tools to really enable the experiences that will help your students move forward. Thanks again for your time today and have a great day.